We're starting with WWE NXT, which saw Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia join forces for their first official tag team match, despite being foes when competing in Japan. The pair faced fatal influences Fallon, Henley, and Jacy Jayne in the main event, with Jasmine Nyx lurking at ringside to try and interfere for her team. While the Beautiful Madness and La Primera easily held their own, Nyx's constant engagement affected them multiple times until Kalani Jordan showed up to take out Nyx. With the outside interference neutralized, Giulia and Vaquer ended the match on a high note, with Vaquer pinning Jayne while Giulia trapped Henley in a submission. Despite their defeat, Henley, Jayne, as well as Jasmine Nyx quickly turned their attention to the giant wheel on stage to determine the stipulation for a match at Halloween Havoc. When Jayne spun, the wheel that would decide the fate of the NXT North American Women's title match landed on Spinner's choice, but the trio wouldn't have time to react. Before they could do that, the lights in the Performance Center flicked off and on, revealing a fully geared Zaria standing in the brightly lit entranceway of the stage. For weeks, NXT has teased the arrival of a mysterious red-headed woman, which would be revealed to be Australian juggernaut Delta, who's also worked as Delta Brady. A former Riot City Wrestling Grand Champion, Delta will now be competing as Zaria, and expectations are high for the Australian star. Trained by Chris Basso and Matt Basso, the Adelaide native attended a tryout in Perth during Elimination Chamber Week earlier this year and was offered a contract after impressing. With her arrival, Zaria joins Giulia and Vaquer as some of the latest international signings to WWE, and while her creative direction is unclear, expect the Adelaide powerhouse to dominate. In January, John Cena will kick off his retirement tour, and fans have been speculating about what this tour will look like ever since Cena shared the news at Money in the Bank. This week, WrestleVotes gave a huge update on Cena's tour, as on Backstage Pass, they stated that John will kick off his farewell on the January 6th edition of Raw. That show will be Raw's debut on Netflix, but Bill Apter reported that he'd heard Cena will make an appearance at Saturday night's main event this December. As for who Cena will face on the tour, WrestleVotes brought up Randy Orton, CM Punk, and Logan Paul as potential opponents as part of John's final year in the ring. Whatever's planned, fans can expect a fitting send-off for the WWE icon, and who are you most looking forward to see go against Cena? Let us know down in the comments. Now, AEW's Max Caster is known for his provocative raps and edgy humor, and recently, the acclaimed member found himself in controversy once again. This time, the backlash came after he seemingly endorsed a controversial segment at a Beyond Wrestling event involving real-life harassment allegations against Drew Gulak. The segment saw Gulak ask Masha Slamovich if he had ever made her feel unsafe or uncomfortable in the locker room, to which she said he hadn't. Gulak responded, "Well, you should have," before attacking her, and while male-female violence in wrestling is its own topic, this segment had another controversial streak. Gulak's comments referenced the real-life accusations from Ronda Rousey, in which she said he pulled on her sweatpants drawstring in an act that made her feel uncomfortable and unsafe. This segment drew significant criticism, with many accusing the promotion of inappropriately handling sensitive matters, but Caster responded differently. In a now-deleted tweet, Max Caster commented on the segment with "Love this," and his remark ignited a backlash on social media. Fans were quick to express their disapproval, criticizing Caster for seemingly supporting the exploitation of real-life harassment allegations in wrestling storylines. Caster's name trended worldwide, and while he would quietly delete the tweet, that didn't come until after screenshots of the post spread online. Caster is known for playing an exaggerated, controversial persona, but many feel his endorsement of the segment crossed the line this week. It has also renewed talks within wrestling about the use of real-life issues for entertainment, and whether wrestlers should take responsibility and know where to draw a line. But what are your thoughts on Caster's support for the use of real-life allegations in storylines? Did this angle cross a line, or are people just too sensitive? Let us know your thoughts below. Speaking of controversial segments, one such segment took place on this week's Raw after Kairi Sane and Io Sky finished their conversation with General Manager Adam Pearce. As the pair left, Carlito walked in to talk to Pearce, and making reference to Sane and Sky, commented that, "I gotta learn Chinese." Sane and Sky are both Japanese, and fans will remember a rowdy NXT attendee years ago who told Sky to go back to China before security booted him from the building. With that in mind, Carlito's comment has spawned a backlash, with fans criticizing the angle, which they argue boils down to the idea that all Asian people are alike. In an update from Fightful Select, the claim internally within WWE is that the line said by Carlito was not scripted or planned, and people in WWE were in disbelief at the use of the line. A number of people weren't happy about it, the report adds, but at this time, there's no word on if any action has been taken against anyone or if there's any heat on Carlito. This line has been removed from social media clips of the segment, which have been cut to start just after it was said, as WWE clearly doesn't want fans to hear it again. But what do you think? Is WWE right to edit the line, or is this just part of Carlito's comedic character? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Wendy Choo just turned up the heat on her feud with Tatum Paxley in one of the wildest moments from this week's NXT. After weeks of tension, Choo escalated things in a dramatic way as she would ambush her nemesis from behind after Paxley's match against Jada Parker. Choo locked her in her signature sleeper hold, putting Paxley out cold, but things took a darker turn as Choo stuffed Paxley into a loading box and wheeled her through the backstage area. This kidnapping left fans in disbelief and adds another layer to the ongoing rivalry between the two that has seen Choo align with TNA's Rosemary, while Paxley has reunited with Lyra Valkyria. As tensions between these factions continue to build, it's clear this is just the beginning of a bizarre storyline, leaving fans wondering what'll happen next now that Paxley has been taken. What do you think will be the outcome of Wendy Choo's kidnapping of Tatum Paxley? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Trick Williams walked up to Ethan Page with confidence but faced the verbal wrath of the former champion ahead of this Sunday's title match. Page said Trick is not ready to taste his own blood in the Devil's Playground and got personal in the promo about his own insecurities. Page spoke about being a 17-year veteran who has finally made it to WWE, and this was a good hook to sell what will likely be the final match of this rivalry. Throughout this angle, Page has carried on the story, particularly on the microphone, and this week proved to be no different for the most part. While his cadence was more stilted than usual, not quite comfortable hitting his key lines, Page delivered, and whether scripted or not, he certainly seemed less comfortable with his words. More forgiving fans can pass this off as Page being emotional as he spoke about his own journey, or being wary of what awaits him in the Devil's Playground match this weekend. Trick hit his own words well, but he did not sell the serious nature of this angle like all ego, even with Page at less than his best. For a rivalry that NXT has tried harder to build than any other in recent memory, Trick vs. Page comes off as less than the sum of its parts, and hopefully their final match lands more than their previous bouts. Now Samantha Irvin's time with WWE has come to an end, and now we know much more about her reasons for saying goodbye. PW Insider reports that WWE was surprised by her exit as she was well liked and respected, but that her schedule was a primary concern when making her decision. Irvin was balancing her commitments between WWE and her family, and while sources said WWE has reduced its road schedule, it still required Irvin to be away from her daughter for extended periods. There had been discussions about her possibly working a reduced schedule, but this didn't materialize, which may have also influenced her decision to leave. On top of that, with her partner Ricochet no longer with WWE and on a different schedule, that situation might have also played a role in her decision, though this has not been confirmed. Sources add that the schedule also made it difficult for Irvin to work on outside projects, and her role on WWE TV had led to interest from other parties, influencing her decision to resign. Samantha had been contemplating leaving WWE for a year or so, and now wants to focus on her music career, and Ricochet has already confirmed that she doesn't plan on joining AEW. With that in mind, fans shouldn't expect to see her in AEW or in a wrestling setting anytime soon, if ever again, as she's ready to test herself outside the industry. With Samantha gone, Lilian Garcia served as ring announcer this week, but her performance, which saw her make a botched call early on, has not won over everyone. On Busted Open Radio, Bully Ray said he saw and heard Lilian's nerves and said Garcia seemed to feel like she had to fill Irvin's shoes. Bully suggested that Garcia needs to focus on announcing her way and advised her not to try and replicate Irvin's passionate calls, saying that Irvin's work was unique to her. It was reported after Raw that Garcia will be the full-time ring announcer for Raw going forward, but how long will this full-time run actually last? PW Insider reports that while Garcia is expected to have an extended run as a ring announcer, she may not be the permanent replacement for Samantha Irvin. A decision regarding her long-term status is expected to be made at a later date, and do you feel Lilian should remain the Raw announcer permanently? Share your thoughts below. On NXT, Adriana Rizzo suffered a beatdown backstage, and while some fans pointed the finger of suspicion at Zaria, that may not be the case at all. In a backstage segment later in the show, Nikkita Lyons was seen talking before being approached by Femi, and the Lioness looked at the ruler and gave him the eyes. Femi handed Lyons her coat and told the recently returned star thank you, suggesting that Lyons attacked Rizzo as part of Femi's feud with Tony D'Angelo and the family. This may have teased a romance angle between the two, though it may be a bit early to tell, but it's clear that WWE has paired the two up in some respect. Femi has a female on his side, and it's someone who can cause a lot of damage, and after returning following a long hiatus, this could be a great way for Lyons to rebuild herself on TV. Lyons' knees have gone through a lot of damage over her short career, so putting her with Femi keeps her on TV and could keep her safe if she doesn't spend as much time in the ring. We'll have to see how things transpire from this point on, but Oba Femi and Nikkita Lyons' alliance was certainly a surprise to see for a lot of fans. Now, for years, Adam Cole and Britt Baker have been in a relationship which was explored on AEW All Access, but now their time together has come to an end. While speaking to Riku Chino of Sports Illustrated, Adam Cole has confirmed that he and Britt Baker are no longer a couple, but still care for each other deeply and remain friends. He said, "We're no longer a couple, but when I say that we both still love each other and are still friends and are still so supportive of each other, that could not be more true. I think the world of Britt. I want her to be as happy and successful as humanly possible, and I know she feels the exact same way about me. We did decide to go our separate ways, but that doesn't mean that she will not be an incredibly important part of my life. Britt is absolutely one of my best friends. She's someone that I love dearly and will always love dearly, and there is no ill will between me and her whatsoever." Cole also shared that reading online comments about their breakup has been difficult for him and stressed that there is no animosity between them. It's since been reported that Cole and Baker split up 7 months ago, and in his interview, Cole said it's possible for people to separate while still having affection for one another. Cole hopes fans understand that there's no need to pick sides in their situation, and we're wishing both he and Baker the best at this time. Back to NXT as the rivalry between Ridge Holland and Andre Chase is about to reach a brutal climax at NXT Halloween Havoc after months of animosity between the two sides. Holland betrayed Chase after the pair lost the NXT tag titles to Fraxium earlier this year in an assault that resulted in Chase being transported away in an ambulance. On this week's NXT, Chase issued a challenge to Holland for Halloween Havoc and fittingly said the pair should face off in an ambulance match at the event. Holland has gained momentum by defeating both Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne in recent weeks, and we'll have to see if Chase is the one to stop Holland's path of destruction. In a backstage segment on NXT, Nathan Frazier attempted to console Javon Evans after his loss to Randy Orton in St. Louis and his loss last week in the NXT title No. 1's Contenders match. Frazier told Evans that one day his time will come and that he's still young, but it was when he spoke of remembering being Evans' age that the young OG snapped and slapped him. Evans left alongside Cedric Alexander, and when Fraxium stormed into Ava's office to ask for the match, Frazier noted he did not care whether it was for the titles or not. He just wants to get his hands on Evans, and when Ava asked if he'd consulted Axiom, Frazier brushed it off, and Ava made the tag title match for next week's episode of NXT. This show will serve as the post-Halloween Havoc edition of the Silver brand, and will we see Alexander and Evans capture the gold? Time will tell. When he arrived in NXT, Lexus King was established as a top heel, but in recent weeks he has undergone a change of character. King doesn't want to be the sort of wrestler who wins by cheating, and even faced Oro Mensah in a gentleman's duel on last week's show. This week, King was involved in a backstage segment with Charlie Dempsey, who agreed to face him for the Heritage Cup next week in what should be an interesting pairing. Dempsey noted that changing perception takes time, but Lexus King would go on to compliment the NXT Heritage Cup champion for establishing himself as his own man despite his family. For anyone unaware, Dempsey is the son of William Regal, but like King, has tried to establish himself on his own merit rather than leaning on the goodwill fans have for his father. As they departed the scene, the No Quarter Catch crew reminded Lexus King that he needed a cornerman to support the multi-round match, seemingly surprising him. In a segment with Ava, King spoke about needing a cornerman but said no one wanted the job since they all thought he was like his father, the loose cannon Brian Pillman. Ava then informed King that she couldn't force anyone to be his cornerman, and King fired back saying they wouldn't understand as everyone loves them. The "they" here could have referred to Ava and her father, The Rock, who is universally loved by millions despite his current WWE role as the final boss. Earlier this year, Lashley officially parted ways with WWE, and this week the almighty former world champion left fans excited about his next major moves. During a virtual signing with K&S WrestleFest, Lashley hinted at being on the verge of making a big move, adding that he already has multiple offers on the table. Lashley said these offers span wrestling, MMA, and even boxing, and mentioned upcoming talks with Paragon Talent founder Stephen K, stating, "We're going to roll the wheel and see what makes sense." When asked about a return to TNA, Lashley said it'd be cool to feud with reigning TNA World Champion Nick Nemeth before discussing a program with Moose. He said, "He's a good friend of mine also, and a phenomenal wrestler, so that's a feud I haven't really been able to really jump into, so there's all kinds of different feuds that look great." Recently, it was expected that Lashley would be debuting for AEW and would join MVP and Shelton Benjamin as part of the Hurt Syndicate. Speaking about a potential AEW move, Lashley spoke about Benjamin's debut and his recent victory over the Almighty's former hype man, Lio Rush. He said, "Lio is my dude. I saw Shelton fight Lio last week, and I wasn't too happy about that." While Rush is Lashley's dude, Bobby didn't reject the idea of aligning with MVP and Benjamin, as he said that it'd be a good opportunity to jump back in. Whether it's in AEW, TNA, MMA, boxing, or something else entirely, Lashley has big plans lined up, as it's clear that the former WWE superstar is far from finished yet. Luca Crucifino was completely outmatched by the power of Oba Femi, who knocked him out with a fall from grace in a dominant win by the Ruler. Tony D'Angelo tried to stop Femi's continued attack after the bell, but the Ruler zip-tied the Don to the steel post and forced the Don to watch as he sent Crucifino through a ladder. That was Luca's second fall from grace of the night, and there was hardly a match here, with the story being about the Ruler destroying the Consigliere. With the attack on Adriana Rizzo, that leaves just Stacks in Tony's corner, and this was a great segment that made the Halloween Havoc match feel hotter than anything else this weekend. It is going to be an uphill battle at Halloween Havoc, which should make for a very dramatic title match, and short of a swerve betrayal on the Don, D'Angelo must win somehow, someway. Femi has been heavily protected since his arrival in NXT, and Femi will need to rebound to a feud he can win after falling to the reigning North American champion again. On this week's Raw, the Wyatt Six returned to bring the fight to the final testament, with The Miz narrowly avoiding taking the mandible claw from Uncle Howdy. After the show, Karrion Kross took to Instagram to share a backstage altercation with The Miz, in which the A-lister attempted to sever ties, stating that he doesn't want anything to do with the Wyatt Six. Kross made it clear that the only way out is to go through the Wyatt Six, and in response, Miz suggested they form a plan to take on the Dark Faction. Paul Ellering saved The Miz from the mandible claw on Raw, an act of protection that wasn't forgotten by Kross, who isn't letting Miz walk away from this situation. But where do you see this storyline heading? Will The Miz and the Final Testament be able to hold their own against the Wyatt Six? Share your thoughts below. After a lengthy absence from TV, Giovanni Vinci returned to action back in September, only to lose back-to-back matches against Apollo Crews. Since then, Vinci has been missing from the Blue brand, and it was reported recently that WWE Creative simply has nothing currently in mind for him. Given his absence and quick losses, some had suggested that Vinci had heat, but Fightful Select has since reported that there's been no talk of Vinci being in the proverbial doghouse. On Twitter, Vinci seemingly reacted to the discussions about him, as he used 4 photos, with one photo stating that he is grateful for plenty in his life. As for this week's SmackDown, Vinci isn't being promoted for the show, and whatever eventually comes his way, the Italian's absence isn't due to heat backstage. In 2024, TNA's Jordynne Grace has made several appearances in WWE, and fans could be seeing much more of the Juggernaut in WWE next year. Sean Ross Sapp reports that a lot of people are expecting Grace to go to WWE when her TNA deal expires in the spring or summer of next year, and we'll have to see if that happens. Back to NXT, as Lash legend and Jakara Jackson looked good as they ever had, as they used their size and power to neutralize the speed of Io Sky and Kairi Sane. As Meta-4 appeared poised to win big though, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven attacked, forcing a no contest as the SmackDown duo took out both teams. This was a strong showing for Meta-4, as Legend and Jackson remain a work in progress, but the regular tag team opportunities are paying out. Damage Control was also very over with the NXT faithful, with loud Io and Kairi chants when they were in the ring, so it's a shame that the ending was so flat. In an attempt to build more of the women's tag division, no one got close to being over, and Meta-4 could have afforded the loss and still made a statement. Damage Control, by comparison, was made to look weak against inexperienced competition, and Meta-4 didn't even get the pop of an upset win. As a whole, this will likely help the division more than hurt, but the non-finish was still disappointing. Ashanti The Adonis barely paid attention to Sol Ruca versus Carmen Petrovic as he chatted with a friend in the crowd, and Petrovic was distracted by Adonis's actions. This allowed Ruka to hit her with a Soul Snatcher for the win, and after a short excursion in TNA Wrestling, Ruka is back in WWE NXT and winning again. With that said, this match was not truly about her despite picking up the victory, as the real story being told here was between Petrovic and Adonis and their tumultuous romance. It's quickly becoming clear that Adonis is not worth her attention and she deserves better, or at least that seems to be the angle for the moment. This angle is working for the moment, but has the potential to get annoying quickly if Adonis does not shape up or Petrovic see through him, and WWE will be wise to ensure this doesn't overstay its welcome. Hank Walker and Tank Ledger came in fast, flanked by Cole Custer to take on OTM, and Custer used his NASCAR helmet to blast Bronco Nima, which set up the collision course by Hank and Tank. Lola Vice slipped into the ring afterwards to dance with Hank, Tank, and Custer, but unfortunately NXT's tag team division remains a mess despite the strong champions. At the very least, it was nice to see OTM back in action, and an energetic performance from Hank and Tank did wonders, even if there was not enough time allocated for the match. The distraction at ringside also did not allow this to be much of anything, and these are teams that need this kind of regular in-ring experience to take the next steps. Nima and Lucian Price have lost serious steam in time away, and though it was nice to see them in the ring, this loss does not help them at all. Custer's involvement was the usual celebrity fare, more spectacle than impact, though he kept his involvement to a minimum. And that was NXT. And what did you think? Let us know below, and thanks for watching.